I would like to call the September 30th, 2020 regular meeting of the Fenton Community High School District 100 regular board meeting to order. Mary, may I have a roll call?
Yes. Galloway?
Here.
Peyton Howell?
Here.
Figueroa?
Here.
Rego?
Here.
Ramirez?
Here.
Tinkle Pong?
Here.
Wiedemann?
Here. We have a quorum. Please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. James, please read our Fenton mission, beliefs, and Bison Way statements.
Sure. Our mission statement: cultivate successful, passionate learners through rigor, relevance, and relationships. Our belief statement: successful, passionate learners thrive when we champion innovative teaching and engaged learning, school and home collaborative effectively. We provide a safe, secure, and caring environment. We infuse social emotional learning into academics and culture. Diversity empowers our learning community. We prepare students to fulfill their civic responsibilities. Bison Way: students and adults at Fenton High School create a safe, caring, empathetic environment where we believe in each other, respect diversity, communicate openly, grow together, and hold each other to high expectation to become the leaders and innovators of the future.
Thank you, James. We will now open the public hearing for the 2020-2021 budget. Rick, are there any public comments?
I am accessing the communications account and there are no comments. Nope. That's fine. No comments. No.
Oh, okay.
None that were submitted via email.
Okay, thank you, Rick. Patty, will you please read the attestation certificate of 2020-2021 tentative budget preparation and availability?
I, Patricia Jolwick, board member and secretary, attest that a tentative budget for the fiscal year 2020-2021 was prepared and made available for public inspection for a period of at least 30 days prior to the hearing.
Thank you, Patty. Bruce, will you please present the tentative 2020-2021 budget, which was prepared by the administration in cooperation with the Finance Committee?
Okay, can everybody, am I on?
I don't think so.
Yes, okay, good. Okay, thank you, Mr. Wiederman. Just wanted to review the final budget, and my comments tonight will be compared to the tentative budget that the board acted on back in July. So tonight is the final budget and the next step in the adoption process, and we'll ask the board later on this evening to act and approve and adopt the 2020-21 budget. So some of this information you've already seen. You can move on, Jim, to the next slide.
Technical difficulties.
There we go. There we go. Okay, thank you. Okay, so the final proposed budget is being presented tonight. As you can see on the cover page there, the next slide are the budget factors or budget adoption legal requirements that I kind of just mentioned. Prepare in tentative form, which we've talked about back in July. It's been on display, the public hearing we're in right now, and then we are asking the board, as I said, to adopt later this evening. And then, of course, the process of submitting it to the Illinois State Board of Education. So factors, you've seen this before, but I'll just run through it real quick. The major factors that impact the budget: fund balance, property tax levy, projected enrollment, staffing, collective bargaining agreements, capital projects, and then long-term revenue and expenditure projections. So those all factor into the budget. And then the district, the funds that we maintain, and the bolded funds are the funds that are the operating funds that we work within. And those are the primary funds that we operate the day-to-day activities with the district. So the educational fund, the operations and maintenance fund, transportation, municipal retirement, and the working cash fund. So those are what is referred to as the operating funds. So just wanted to touch base a little bit on the implications to the budget due to the pandemic we're in and some of the uncertainty that we're dealing with and working through. We're not unique to this, obviously, in Illinois and probably across the country as well in terms of some of the things we're having to contend with. So I'll start out by saying property taxes and state aid is relatively stable, so we're pleased to report that. Local revenues, however, and federal funds are down from the tentative budget, and I'll get a little bit more specific on that later on. And what's driving that? Revised projection of food sales, our student fees, parking fees, as the board may recall, were reduced, registration fees, athletic events, all those types of fees, local revenues that we collect are going to be reduced and are projected to be far less than they were in the tentative or even last year. And then the federal funds, we do receive reimbursement. We're a participant in the National School Lunch Program. So we are expecting less meal reimbursement because we are serving far fewer meals than we have in the past. And then continuing on, just a couple more things about some of the uncertainties, and these are really the major pieces. Busing services, we are adjusting that based on the continuation of remote learning. And then the sports activity programs that impact not only staffing, but also impact our transportation and things like that. So when we look at the overview compared to the tentative, and again, this is just the operating fund, so those 5 funds we talked about a few slides previously. Revenues in the final budget, we're expecting to go down 1.83% or $566,000. The good news is, I suppose, that expenditures are down as well by 2.65 or $843,000. We still are projecting an unbalanced budget of about $535,000. That is an improvement from when the tentative budget was approved back in July by about $277,000. So the tentative showed about an $813,000 shortfall. And I really want to focus on the 2 funds where if not all of the impact happened across these 2 funds from the tentative to the final. The education and transportation funds had significant changes both in revenues and expenditures. The ed fund revenues, local sources are down by 1.5% or $359,000. Federal revenues down by 11.4 or $140,000. And what's driving that are the reduced food service sales or a la carte sales, which would kind of fall into the local revenue category. Meal reimbursements also tied to food service, but that's reimbursement that's classified as federal reimbursement funds. That is projected to go down dramatically as well. And then overall, the ed fund revenue is expected to drop 1.9% or about $500,000. When we look at the expenditure side of the education fund, we're looking at a projection reduction of 2.1% or $563,000. The majority of that is tied to our staff salaries, about $410,000. And what's driving that is we had 3 retirements at the beginning of the year. Our substitute staff budget line item was reduced, and our summer school salaries were also adjusted to reflect the activity that occurred this past summer. So we were able to reduce that somewhat as well. And then our purchase services, that's the other piece, is down about 10% or about $184,000. And again, going back to food service, we pay a management company to operate our food service program. So we're expecting our revenues going down, our participation is going down, and our management fees will go down or project to go down as well and will. And then moving on to the transportation fund revenues, State aid's projected to go down by about 18% or $65,000. And our state aid reimbursement, which we'll receive this year, is based on activity that occurred last year. Previous year's activity, as it states there, as you all know, the year ended pretty earlier than what anybody expected back in March. So accordingly, our state aid will be reduced this year as well, based on that. And then overall, the transportation fund revenue is projected to go down by about 6.3%. And then moving on to the transportation expenditures. Overall, we're projecting a 17.1% drop, or $258,000. Staff salaries are a big driver there, the majority of it, but by about 21%, or $177,000. And that's really due to reduced bus routes and activities, sporting activities, co-curricular activities, all those types of things are not happening as they would in a normal school year. Purchase services, 8.6% drop, or $45,000. Again, kind of attributed to special education contracted busing. That's been reduced. And then supplies in the transportation fund of about $36,000. And that's general supplies we reduced, and then fuel needs as well. I do want to touch on a few things as far as our initiatives in the budget, because those haven't gone away. We still have some initiatives that we are planning on continuing. They may be modified in some manner and have been, but they will continue to go on. Our curriculum development, remote learning 2.0, which we invested in over the summer with professional development. Much of that was paid for with CARES Act funding. You probably are aware that that's federal funding that came to the district. That's what funded that. Our strategic plan continuation, that continues to happen, which was adopted 2 years ago. I hope I'm right with 2 years ago. Technology enhancements. We've purchased hotspots for students that don't have access to internet. We're also participating in an Internet Essentials program sponsored by the Regional Office of Education, and we're going to have that act on a resolution a little bit later this evening. But that's for students who are families that can't afford high-speed internet. This is a program that'll subsidize that. Our facility assessment, we hope to resume that when we're back to somewhat normalcy. Safety and security has been a huge issue with COVID and protecting our staff and visitors that come to the building, thermometers, PPE equipment, things like that. And that kind of falls into the adherence to regulating agencies' safety and cleaning protocols. We've devoted a lot of, invested in some equipment. Again, much of that was offset with the CARES Act funding. Transportation safety, and then food services. The food service program actually is expanded somewhat now because of the continuation of the summer program that is going to, right now we're told it's going to go into, last until December. And that basically is kind of a universal free meal program for all of our students. That hasn't dramatically increased participation, but it certainly has helped. And we're actually bundling meals where students can come and pick them up on a couple days a week. So that's working out pretty well, I think. So with all that being said, here's kind of a chart. I know there's a lot of numbers on there, but you've seen this before. The operating funds are on the left, the 5 at the top there. We've got our beginning balances, our revenues, our expenditures, and our variance. And as you can see, if you look about the middle of the page, the subtotal, the bolded line there. If you look over under the variance column, that's that $536,000 shortfall. And as I said, that's an improvement from about $813,000 back in July. And then if you look down further down, all funds all the way at the bottom, when you add in the non-operating funds, the shortfall under variance is about $640,000, and that was a $917,000 shortfall. So we were able to still having a deficit, but improving that based on the information that we know today. And then the next slide just shows the revenue expenditure, kind of a historical perspective and what we're projecting for this year. But the last 3 years, we did have surplus budgets, so that has helped the district certainly. And you can see in this year's budget all the way to the right, the blue representing the revenues and the red representing the expenditures. And you can see the variance there between the two. And that's where there's shortfall. And this looks at all funds, by the way. And then our historical perspective of our fund balance. The last few years, we've been able to increase that fund balance. This year, it's dipping a little bit, as you can see all the way to the right. But again, this kind of illustrates, I think, the importance of having some reserves for the district in times that we're going through right now that are so uncertain. And then in summary, the all funds, as I kind of mentioned, that's all the operating funds plus the non-operating funds have improved from a shortfall of $917,000 to $640,000 in the final budget. As I mentioned, the district does have adequate reserves to cover the shortfall. The final budget is based on the latest known information. That can and likely will change before the end of the school year. And that kind of leads into the next comment about it may be necessary to amend the 2021 budget in the spring. So we'll monitor that closely. We'll continue to keep the board informed on developments. We'll try to reduce that deficit as much as we can between now and then. But there may have to be an amendment to the budget based on all the unknown factors that we are still contending with. So that's kind of the overall comparison from tentative in July to the final budget. And now I'll open it up to any questions or comments on the budget. We're good.
Part of the reason why we're in deficit is because of revenue issues.
Right.
Do you see that in the market at all? Or are you and your colleagues hearing out there that revenues might increase 2 years, 3 years from now where we could recover a little bit?
Well, I think the good news when we file our levy in next month, actually, so it'll be the 2020 levy payable in the spring and then the next year, that the CPI is 2.3%, so we'll be able to increase our levy by 2.3%. Hopefully, the economy will continue to improve. Our tax distributions will come timely and completely. We weren't sure how that was going to flow this past year in the spring and the fall. I'm pleased to report that they're coming as expected and as usual is what we've gotten. So we're fortunate to have, a 99% collection rate. We're hoping that just continues going forward. So, yeah, that's our best. Interest income is down dramatically. Yes. Probably, if anybody's looked at, putting money in the bank, you might as well, not do that because it's not paying real well.
In your drawer.
So, yeah, but good question though.
Are there any questions or clarifications needed at this time from our audience members in attendance?
So you're playing this out. Let's say COVID doesn't work and we potentially get a second wave. And that'll prolong our situation financially. Where do you see that play out as far as countermeasures? Obviously, we're tip into the reserves. But what are we doing to counter that?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a fair question. I think we would look at our expenditures very thoroughly. We've been doing that. We'll continue to look at that. We've talked internally about some additional considerations to think about reductions. We're trying to avoid that as much as we can, but it's we may, as you say, if that kind of plays out, have to make some more difficult decisions as we go forward. Yeah, sure.
Any further questions? Then, thank you, Bruce.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Bruce.
We will now close the public hearing for the 2020-2021 budget. We will now return to the regular Board of Education meeting. Mary, do we have any requests for public comments?
Yes, we have 6 interested parties.
Okay, thank you. As a reminder, public comments are limited to 3 minutes per speaker with a limit of 30 minutes per topic. Mary, can we have the first speaker, please?
Mr. Sudak, could you please leave a copy of your speech before you leave a copy with me before you leave?
You want a copy of what I wrote down?
Yes, please. Not inside the order.
Well, I kind of like, shoot from hip a little bit. Technically, attorney-client
It's not
privilege, so I'm going to decline your request. So no, you may not have a copy,
Well, it
but I can
becomes part
email.
of board meeting, so that's why I like to have a copy, because it becomes part of the documents to go to the board meeting.
I'd be happy to send you a copy of the 5-page letter that I provided the board
Thank you.
last time, and that Mr. Antango was nice enough to read. Unfortunately, it violated the 3-minute rule, and I'm not on the clock yet for 3 minutes, am I?
No, you're not.
Okay, so, but I'll provide you a copy of that as well, okay?
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Marshall Subak. I am here to comment on the remote learning plan. I'm requesting that the board, teachers, and administration reevaluate the remote learning plan to increase the amount of teacher instruction. Currently, the students are only getting about 1 to 2 hours per week of direct instruction from the teachers per class, and that's simply not enough. My concern is about the content that the kids are going to be missing out on. The teachers are trying their best. I have no problems with their effort. I have no problems with this board's effort or the administration's effort in trying to come up with a plan. Last spring, no critiques, as that was crisis learning. But since then, there's been plenty of time to adopt a plan. And it seems like Fenton High School is kind of an outlier when it looks like what we adopted compared to other schools. The Illinois State Board of Education set guidelines. It's on their website that anybody can see. In some of those important guidelines, it says that planning should account for 5 hours of learning time each day for each student, 5 days a week. It says teacher presence is important, and the students should not think or feel like they're teaching themselves. Currently, our plan is for 4 days a week. Yes, we have bison time on Monday. That is a maximum of 1 hour. The reality is it's only about a half hour. And so really the students are only getting 4 hours or 4 days a week. There's no reason to have only bison time on Monday. Last year when I was before this board and I raised issues about the evidence-based learning that's slowly creeping into the school, one of the reasons I got was, well, this is what Stevenson High School does. And Stevenson High School is considered one of the gold standards for schools, for high schools. I looked at what Stevenson High School adopted for their remote learning plan, and we didn't adopt what Stevenson High School did. So my question is, why would we adopt what they do for evidence-based learning, but not adopt their plan for remote learning? I agree that the students can't spend 7 hours a day in front of a screen. That's not effective for the teacher. That's not effective for the students. I also think the 1 hour, quite honestly, is probably too long for the students to be engaged with the teacher for when they are getting teacher instruction. I think it needs to be in shorter time frames, but at least 5 days a week. One of the reasons I got for this plan was that we were worried about screen time, and also we're trying to get the students to do a more blended learning. Blended learning is where the kids take more of an active role in teaching themselves the material. Blended learning for high school, I checked and I couldn't find any data to support that this works in a high school setting. 3 minutes. If I can make a conclusion.
Yes.
Okay, so The blended learning, there's no data that supports it. In the best practices say that learning should be based upon, or teaching based upon best practices. So I'm asking you to redirect the staff to come up with a plan that does some type of increased teacher instruction 5 days a week. Make sure that if we do go to hybrid, that there's technology in the classroom, so when the kids, the other half or whatever it is, are at home, they can still Zoom in at the same time. And then the last thing, I'm told this is supposed to be a partnership, and be patient. I think we are being patient, but as part of the partnership, you have to listen to not only yourselves, but to the staff and to the parents. I hear sometimes that we get students are very happy with the plan, or they like it that Mondays are just bison time. No disrespect to my daughter. I don't care what she thinks about the Mondays off. I want her learning content. Finally, Mr. President, as to the 3-minute rule, there's no state law in Illinois that says comments have to be limited to 3 minutes. You, as the president of the board, have the right to do a motion to suspend the rules at any time to allow for further comments. Any parent, student, former students that come to speak, if they take the time out of their day, they should be given as much reasonable time as they need. I spent a lot of time spending a 5-page letter last week or last month, and Mr. Antango, he did to the best of his ability, couldn't get through it all. So I think respectively, you could suspend the 3-minute rule. Thank you for letting me go over tonight, but especially for the students who are going to speak tonight, let them go past 3 minutes so they can be heard. Thank you.
Hello, it's good to see you all again this week. My name is Talia Anguiano. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a product of Fenton's high school class of 2013. As lifelong learners in the areas of social justice, diversity, equity, and inclusion, we just have a couple of questions. Thank you. And concerns surrounding the equity training that was presented to the board last week on behalf of the Illinois Association of School Boards. We took notice that the equity training was scheduled for April, as one of the facilitators had mentioned during the training last week, but was not held, obviously, due to the pandemic and statewide closures. Working in timeline with the training and the inclusion resolution that was passed, we're just simply wondering why the board did not wait to pass an inclusion statement when they were better equipped and prepared with the tools and resources needed to craft and talk about a statement that has the potential to be so impactful and powerful. As a person who personally has facilitated many trainings and whatnot centered around diversity, equity, and inclusion, I found it a bit concerning at the lack of depth that parts of the training had discussed. For example, the scenario based around bias was not impactful in my personal opinion, nor did it get at the root of what bias actually is or looks like in the context of someone's race, gender, sexual orientation, ethnicity, immigration status, ability, etc. It is absolutely no secret that an employer would select a candidate with the most years of experience. But what employers do keep as secrets are the biases that are not the most favorable, for lack of better words, by folks whom say they value and center equity and inclusion in their work. At one point throughout the training, a board member responded to another member saying, I think we are aware that this was going to be a long journey. And our question for that member and the rest of the board is, if you all are aware that this diversity, equity, and inclusion journey is going to be long, what are you all planning on doing to ensure that you are fueled up for the long ride ahead? While we recognize that one's own personal journey towards becoming DEI-centered is their own, we found it a bit alarming and concerning to not hear what people will do for their own personal equity journey, considering that you all should be leading this district through an equitable lens. In terms of transparency and due to a high level of engagement from the community on this matter, we hope that the board will engage in an open community dialogue with folks from across District 100. We would like to hear how our board members, whom are elected to represent and serve us, are committed to sharing what they will do for their own personal equity journeys and how that then translates to their work as a school board member. We want transparency and open dialogue, and we are looking forward to seeing how you fulfill your responsibility to connect and engage with the community in a way that is not only intentional but effective. Thank you.
Jamie?
Hi, my name is Jamie Menard, and I'm a Fenton class of 2018 alum, and I use she, her pronouns. Respectfully, Mr. James Antanko, I started at Fenton in 2014. The following year, you were hired as our principal. You came into the school sharing stories of immigration, discrimination, and challenges growing up as a minority. You addressed the school saying you were here to be a voice for the minorities. While I was at Fenton, students did not feel this protective presence you promised, and from what I've heard, nothing much has changed. With the board's decision on the diversity statement, it was clear the Fenton community felt their identities erased. In August, many community members submitted statements about their own experiences at Fenton, which were ignored. Last week, the other alumni and I, with the support of almost 600 community members, shared our disappointment, only to be ignored as well. A voice that is deafeningly silent is yours. You are superintendent of a one-school district, leading just under 1,500 students. We challenge you to be the person who stands up for your students. We call on you to be brave enough to prove your loyalty falls to the students before the Board of Education by calling out the board's inaction. Put yourself in your students' shoes and imagine how they feel with the board's decisions and the silence from the administration. Our voices have been disregarded. A statement from you would be impossible to ignore. Prove to us you are willing to stand up for your students and see the importance in recognizing a diverse student body. The Board of Education and Mr. Antanko, last meeting, you discussed Fenton's cultural audit, and it was clear the details are not thoroughly understood. Board members were unaware when the audit was completed or that it even was. If the board members do not know, how would the community? An item as big as this audit should be more transparent to the community. This audit should have gone into the board's decision on the diversity inclusion statement. Instead, the information collected seems to be hidden and treated unimportant. As for the implementation timeframe, 3 to 4 years is unacceptable. What are you doing for your current students? We urge you to look into changes to be implemented this school year. Issues of diversity, inclusion, and education are urgent, and you need to remember you are here to make decisions that affect the current student body as well as the future. Thank you.
Amal.
My name is Amal Ghanima, and my pronouns are she, her. Last meeting, a board member said verbatim, "We want input on how to give students a sense of belonging." Well, a very good starting point for this would to be call for a revote and change the equity and diversity statement that the board decided on, accompanied by an apology for the decision and comments made in the past board meetings. You cannot say that the district is already past the point of sameness/colorblind on the cultural responsiveness continuum when the equity statement that was passed erases the different struggles of students who need extra support and acknowledgement. Acknowledge that the undocumented families in Bensonville Wooddale need to be protected by our school district. There cannot be members of the board, and there are some that say they don't agree with the existence of the very people they are here to serve. Support gay, trans, and non-binary students in our school by giving them a platform to air their grievances, and openly condemn homophobic comments made by their peers and teachers. The same goes for our Black and brown students and other groups alike. You are the ones who are supposed to set correct expectations for everyone else to follow. We are nowhere near the end of the continuum that is color brave. So since the board agreed last week that this is where the district should be, it is only logical to change the decided statement from last month. Otherwise, these claims do not match the intentions of the board. Really asking for the board's evaluation of where our district is on the cultural continuum is very ironic, because it is not the job of those in power to decide when equity has been achieved. The minority groups in the community are the perceptions that should be prioritized on this subject. And if public response and testimonials are received by the board as exaggerated or something that is not actually commonplace in our community, then the board does not believe in these groups' ability to honestly and accurately portray their own experiences. So either you do not have mutual trust with our community, or you do believe what the minorities in Bensenville-Wooddale are trying to articulate, but you are complacent with your lack of action to make changes in how our school system runs since it already serves you well enough. Last week, there was a discussion about demonstrating the difference between equality and equity through showing images of 3 figures with different heights trying to look over a fence. For those of you who were not there, there were different required accommodations needed for each of the figures to be able to see over the fence. In these 2 illustrations, the different heights represent the different backgrounds of students, and the ability to see over the fence represents academic success. My question is, why is there a fence obstructing these students to begin with? While it is important for the district to provide active accommodations to combat inequities, what can the district do to change the functions of our school system that create these exact inequities? In other words, what is the school board going to do to ensure that this fence does not even exist in the first place? Thank you.
Jessica?
Good evening. My name is Jessica Bingo, and I use she, her pronouns. And I'm a Fenton class of 2016 alum. As board members, you all took an oath and swore to consistently assess student achievement in all conditions affecting the education of our children. I challenge you all to consider how civil unrest, police brutality, and the political climate today affects the mental and emotional health of your students and whether our marginalized students can truly reach their academic potential while at the same time fearing for their lives because of their identities. What are you doing to support them? Your duty as board members also means establishing an equal educational opportunities policy that prohibits unlawful discrimination. Your policy is inadequate. You ignored public comments littered with evidence of racism and discrimination at Fenton. You are failing our community and your inherent responsibilities as board members in prohibiting discrimination. To reverse this trend of inequity, we need open communication between the community and the board. Therefore, we will begin the conversation. We are demanding that, first, you reconsider the approved diversity and equity statement to include different identities of students. This should not have been passed before equity training. Next, we're asking you to create a diversity, equity, and inclusion committee. This should include students, staff, board members, community members that aim to create an inclusive environment. Next, implement mandatory diversity, equity, and inclusion training. Make social emotional learning and cultural competency training mandatory for all students, staff, and administration. Next, schedule regular diversity, equity, and inclusion workshops. Have periodic workshops with the community to ensure up-to-date training on how to better serve marginalized students. Next, assemble a designated space for marginal groups to meet. Provide these safe spaces for marginal groups so they can meet. Next, hire a counselor and mentor specifically for marginalized groups. They must be certified to speak and listen to students who have experienced trauma. Next, analyze trends in discipline referral data, attendance, and academic success. Identify and prioritize areas to improve and guide marginalized students. Next, create a zero tolerance policy for acts of discrimination. Take all incidents of racism seriously and implement effective enforcement accordingly. Next, attend events and classes of your current students. Get to know the students you represent. Next, schedule speakers and authors of a diverse background to speak. Expose students to all views and experiences of racism. Lastly, but most importantly, host a Q&A with the community. Present your views and conduct dialogue. Engaging with us is one of your action steps discussed in the last equity meeting. You have all been elected to represent us, and we are inviting you to work with us and be a part of the solution rather than the problem. We and the 566 other signatures are tired of waiting. Thank you.
Rebecca?
Hello, I did send a letter to every member of the board as well as school administration about remote learning. And as Mr. Subak mentioned earlier, 1 to 2 hours a week just is not enough student time with the teacher. I agree that we need to do smaller blocks of time more often and give the students the opportunity to listen to what the teacher says, work on it at home, and then be able to communicate with the teacher again in a more timely manner. In some cases, students would hear on Wednesday about a lesson and not be able to speak to their teacher again until Tuesday the following week. A lot can get lost in that time. I know personally my daughter's been given videos for math. And again, videos, they need to be able to stop and ask questions, especially in math, because if you don't get step 1, there's no way you're going to understand step 6. So there can be so much lost time. I have talked to members of the administration at the school asking about this and sharing my opinion. And I was told one of the ways they can do is learn time management this way. And I see so much lost and wasted time with students who aren't starting class till as late as 1 o'clock in the afternoon and having absolutely no class, well, bison time on Monday, which, while is important, is more of a nice to have than a need to have. And right now, we need to give our students every opportunity. Students learn in a lot of different ways, and we need to give every student the opportunity to meet with their teachers, work, ask questions, experiment at home, and go back. I think keeping closer to a bell schedule, even if it's more shorter periods, more often, is going to keep them in the habits of what a school day is like. So when we do return to the classroom, be it a couple weeks, a couple months, or next year, they're in those same habits. And I guess that's all I have right now. Thank you.
Mary, do we have any further? Okay. I would like to thank all of the speakers that came in. We truly appreciate the time you took to come in and speak, and thank you again for coming. Next, we move on to the presentation of 2019-2020 District Financial Audit by the accounting firm of Lauterbach and Amann, LLP. Bruce, please introduce our auditors.
I will. I'd be pleased to. Thank you. As the board may recall, last school year, we went out and did a request for proposal for professional auditing services. And we had actually a very good response. Lauterbach and Amann, I believe we interviewed 4 firms. They made it to the chosen one, the top one. So we were pleased with what they had to say. We were pleased with the whole process this past summer. And I'm pleased to introduce the partner, Matt Barron, who was here tonight to talk about the financial activities that ended June 30th, 2020.
Thank you, Bruce. Quick, since you guys haven't seen me, I'm Matt Barron, so you get to, you can't really see behind the mask, but just wanted to say hello. Thank you for having us as your auditors. It's great to be here. As I go through my thank yous as well, I want to thank Bruce and his team for all their hard work during the audit. First year is always the hardest year for an audit, and this year went extremely well first year in. Like, we're getting to know you, you're getting to know us, our process, our new procedures, and everything went very well. A big audit package was prepared right when we walked in the door, and all of our questions were answered right away. And as I go through my audit presentation, I'll have a few other comments for you as well as how successful this first year audit was. So as far as my audit presentation goes, I'm going to keep it at a pretty high level. If any of you have any questions, please feel free to ask as we go. I'd be happy to answer as we go through the presentation. Since Bruce has kind of touched on some of these points already during his budget presentation, so some of this is going to be reiterating what he said. So I'll just try to touch on those points as we go as well. So within your audit report, so I'm going to go over two documents, your audit report and the management letter. I think Bruce said everyone had a hard copy. I can kind of walk us through the main pages within this audit report that I'll be covering. Starting on page 1 within the report, it looks like this. It has the Lauterbach name and letterhead on it. So it's the thicker of the two documents, not the management letter, but the actual audit report. On page 1, this is the opinion page. This is the main thing you get from us as your auditors. We gave the district a modified opinion this year, and what modified opinion is, it was only for cash basis. So what the district uses for their accounting methodology is cash basis, which is not the recommended method. They look for modified accrual and accrual accounting. Since we use modified cash basis, that's where our modification is. However, for the rest of what we're providing as far as our opinion goes, the district had a unmodified opinion, which means you were had an adequate internal control framework in place, and your numbers in here are what they say they are. All your other government accounting standards are met other than cash basis. 3 pages after that, we get to the management discussion analysis. What this section is, it starts on page 5. This is a high-level narrative summary of everything that happened at the district during the year. So rather than flipping through all 100 or whatever pages are in this thing, we can kind of read through this at a high level to know what happened. Since I'm going to be covering that within my presentation, let's flip on past this and let's go all the way forward to page 18. On page 18, this is your balance sheet for your governmental funds. Far right-hand column is your totals of all of your funds. Second number up from the bottom, you can see is our fund balance. Our total fund balance across all of your funds is $25 million. In your far left-hand column is your general fund. That includes your education, O&M, and working cash funds. In total, that's a total of $23.1 million. So how did we do this year? Let's go forward to page 20. On page 20, this is your income statement. Again, far right-hand side is your totals across all of your funds. Third number up from the bottom, we have a total increase across all of your funds of $1.6 million. Bruce touched on this within the budget presentation that we had a little uptick this year as far as the operations goes for your fund balance of this $1.6 million with the ending of 25. As far as the general fund, your main operating fund, you had a total increase of about $1.3 million. Revenues were consistent this year with the budget and very consistent with the prior year. This has to do, as Bruce was referring to, your property taxes and your evidence-based funding are pretty steady year over year, and that rang true for the fiscal year 20. In addition, your expenses were about $1 million under budget to allow for this positive fund balance increase. At the end of the year, when we're comparing how healthy a fund balance is, we look at our total overall funds compared to our total expenses. And usually I like to take out the on behalf payments because those come from the state. In total, we're at about 85% of fund balance across the general fund compared to your total expenses. That's a very healthy balance as far as Bruce is referring to as we go into 2021 and the deficit fund that you'll be able to get through that, especially for the fiscal year 2021. Any questions about these numbers here before I move forward? Last thing I'd like to point out within the audit report starts at about page 20. I don't need to take us to it unless you guys would like to go into it. It starts with the pension liabilities. There's a lot of pages back there. It gets pretty overwhelming as far as the amount of information that's back there with the pension liabilities. So I'm just going to touch on them at a very high level. As far as what they show back there for pension liabilities is both from a pension standpoint and from a retiree health insurance standpoint. With those, the district truly has responsibility of paying within the IMRF portion, which is the retirement pension for the IMRF employees. The district has been following along with what they need based on what IMRF's expectations are, and they're staying adequately funded as they're supposed to be. TRS and THIS are mostly funded through the state, and those are what the teachers are a part of. Any questions about the audit report before I touch on the management letter? As far as the management letter goes, it's a much thinner document that you can see, which is obviously a very good thing. Management letter is an additional report that we're providing to you as management of Typically, we give management letter comments on 3 different things. 1, informational type items. 2, best practices that we see out in the industry. Or 3, true internal control problems that we see ever identified as significant issues that the district needs to address immediately. As far as what we provided within your management letter, it's a very clean management letter. There are 3 comments within here, and I would consider them all to be informational for the board, 2 of which are government accounting standards that are going to be upcoming that we're working with Bruce to get implemented within your audit report in coming years. The other one being you had 1 fund over budget. It's the debt service fund. And it's only $1,200. So this is more of a, we have to do this as auditors to communicate to the board that you had a fund go over what was budgeted for as far as your expenses. But as you can see, it being only $1,200, not a significant issue to be worried about. So with that being said, with the management letter, but as clean as it is, no internal control findings, it was a very successful audit year for the district this year. Any questions for me about the audit report, management letter, or anything?
So really, you only found this one debt service?
Yeah, as far as like as an issue goes. Like I said, we go through internal control work with you. We walk through your cash receipts, disbursements. We go through single audit testing with grants, and we did not identify any internal control issues to be communicated to the board.
Good job, Bruce.
Any further questions for Matt? No? Then I'd like to thank you, Matt and Bruce, for that presentation.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here tonight.
You're welcome. Thanks so much.
Nice to meet everybody.
Thank you. See you next year.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, now we move on to the acceptance of the 2019-2020 district financial audit. May I have a motion that the Board of Education accepts the 2019-2020 audited financial statements as submitted by Lauterbach and Amen LLP?
So moved.
Second?
Thank you, Jackie. Thank you, Juliet. Roll call, please.
Howell,
Yes.
Galloway,
Yes.
Figueroa,
Yes.
Rego,
Yes.
Ramirez,
Yes.
Tinkle Pong,
Yes.
Wiedemann,
Yes. Motion has passed. And the next item, does anyone have any questions regarding the 2020-2021 budget? If not, then may I have a motion that the Board of Education accept the certificate stating that the tentative budget for 2020-2021 was prepared and available for public inspection 30 days prior to the hearing, and the publisher's affidavit of legal notice of public hearing and incorporate same into the official minutes of the meeting.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Mary Ann. May I have a second? Thank you, Kit. Roll call, please.
Peyton Howell,
Yes.
Figueroa,
Yes.
Rego,
Yes.
Ramirez,
Yes.
Tinkle Pong,
Yes.
Jalowick,
Yes.
Wiedemann,
Yes. Motion has passed. May I have a motion that the Board of Education adopt the 2020-2021 budget resolution as presented?
Motion. I'll second.
Thank you, Kit. Thank you, Jackie. Roll call, please.
Peyton Howell,
Yes.
Rego,
Yes.
Ramirez,
Yes.
Tinkle Pong,
Yes.
Jalowick,
Yes.
Figueroa,
Yes.
Wiedemann,
Yes. Motion has passed. May I have a motion that the Board of Education adopt the 2020-2021 budget as presented?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Mary Ann. May I have a second?
Second.
Oops.
Thank you, Leo. Roll call, please.
Peyton Howell,
Yes.
Ramirez,
Yes.
Tinkpopong,
Yes.
Yalowitz,
Yes.
Figueroa,
Yes.
Rego,
Yes.
Wiedemann,
Yes. Motion is passed. We move on to the DuPage Regional Office of Education Intergovernmental Agreement. And Bruce, that's all yours.
I briefly mentioned this earlier in the budget presentation, and we're pleased to participate in this program that's really sponsored by the Regional Office of Education. They've received some CARES Act funding, federal funding as well, and they're utilizing it to offset high-speed internet services for families that are in need of that. So we're pleased to take advantage of it. Basically, it's a program that will provide low-income families an opportunity to apply for internet essentials or high-speed internet at no cost to the household for up to 12 months. The criteria is set by Comcast, which would be the provider, but they have the opportunity to apply for it through numbers, information that we provide to them that we would basically be billed for it, and then we would be reimbursed by the Regional Office of Education for those services. So in order to formalize that and enter into the participation of the program, they're asking that we act and approve the attached resolution that's enclosed there. And we're recommending that the board act on that this evening. And I think it's a great program. We have about 26 applications out there right now. We basically send them a package of information. We're a resource for them if they need assistance. If they don't have internet to apply, they can come to the school. We'll provide some support for them to apply. And we're hopeful that most of them, if not all of them, will qualify for these essential internet high-speed services. So we're pleased to be a part of it. The school's been wonderful working with us to provide names and to families that may be potential candidates to apply for the program. So we're happy to be a part of it.
Bruce, how does that work? Do they receive, is it a hotspot or is it
It's actually high-speed internet, just as most of us probably have in our home. So right now, many of them are using hotspots, which, as you probably are aware, are not as reliable and not as fast as a high-speed connection would be. So this would take the place of that hotspot, and I think be a far more reliable service than the hotspot.
So hardwired.
Yes.
Coax? Is it cable? Sir, the cable coax?
Yeah,
Right, yeah.
through Comcast.
Yeah, okay, there we go.
Okay, does anyone have any further questions? Otherwise, may I have a motion that the Board of Education approve the intergovernmental agreement between the DuPage Regional Office of Education and Fenton Community High School District 100?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Leo. Thank you, Mary Ann. Roll call, please.
Peyton Howell,
Yes.
Tinkpopong,
Yes.
Jalowitz,
Yes.
Figueroa,
Yes.
Rego,
Yes.
Ramirez,
Yes.
Wiedemann,
Yes. Motion has passed, and thank you, Bruce, for that presentation. Now we move on to the District 100 informational items. James?
Thank you.
It's yours.
Just board recognition, the Illinois Association of School Board recognizes the following board members. Board Member Ramirez, Board Member Figueroa, and Board Member Wiedemann as a Board Master Board Member. This status is earned by attending ISAB division meeting, governing meetings, legislative leadership programs, as well as holding positions of leadership within the associations. Thank you and congratulations. They have something here for you. I will distribute it after the board meeting. But once again, thank you. Up to our COVID update, I provide you a COVID update within my report every week. We look at a couple of data, including the Illinois Department of Public Health, the the DuPage County Public Health Department, and a local zip code, which I will show here right now to find out the cases there. As anyone could see this at the Illinois Department of Public Health dashboard. We are currently, DuPage is in moderate transmission. There's three, as you know, transmission levels: the minimal, moderate, and substantial. Total cases is 1,742, and we're going to look at some of these dashboards here. The next slide, please. This next slide covers the age group that's hit in regards to COVID. As you can see there's by age group. 0 to 4 is blue, red is 15 to 19, and green is 5 to 14. At the high school level is the red level. The transmission among high school students is much higher than the lower grade levels. Next slide, please. This one is by villages. Here in DuPage, as I have reported in the past, Bensonville is at, did I write it there? Nope, I didn't write it there. It's within the top 11 villages in DuPage that's hit hardest by COVID. It's over here. I think it's 735 here. I got another slide that shows it a little bit better. And Wooddale is over here at, I believe, at 332.
So Addison's really high.
Addison is they continue to be one of the highest. Naperville has caught up. West Chicago is high. We were number 3 at the beginning of approximately in April and May. At that level, we have lowered the number of cases. Here in Bensonville, Wooddale tends to be lower.
So this is overall numbers.
These are overall numbers as of yesterday when I pulled the data. So Bensonville right there, 735, Wooddale 389. I didn't see that. And my glasses fogs up when I talk, so it's like the next one right here, there is, which I shared with you, a COVID by zip code cases. We watched this as well. The Illinois Department of Public Health would like us to keep an eye overall on the DuPage County numbers, but we could even dig down if we want. There's another source of numbers here. So on the far right side is the 14 rolling average COVID positive rates. Here in Bensonville is 4.66. The average rolling when they started collecting this data is 504, and the new cases per 100,000 population is 114 per 100 of students, 91.8.
It's 5.04.
5.04. This number right here, we would like, or the Illinois Department of Public Health would like to have this below 50 per 100,000. So that's an indicator it's a little bit high. They like this number to be below 5%. So we're below that at this current moment when I pulled it yesterday. Did we move to Wooddale? Yep, Wooddale. As you can see here, the rolling average COVID positivity for the last 14 days is 8.16%. Okay, we want that under 5. The rolling average is 10.174 for Wooddale. In regards to weekly new cases per 100,000, the last 14 days is 136.7, and you could read that data. Next slide. Okay, so this is a combination of Wooddale and Bensonville. So if we combine those things, those two feeder communities here, both Bensonville and Wooddale, the combination would be there. The average for both villages is 5.97, and the rolling average for the last 7 days is 6.93. We want to lower those numbers. That's why we encourage folks, the 3 W's: wear a mask, watch your distance, and wash your hands. So we continue that. As today, we get this daily report from the Daily Herald, and today as of today, 2,273 new cases and 35 more deaths there. So we'll continue to provide this. You guys get this every week from me. There's just a good reminder that we are monitoring the COVID status, not just in our villages, but throughout DuPage as well as Illinois. Any questions there? I would believe is under 5 in positivity rate and below 50 cases per 100,000. If you could scroll back, Jim, just want to point that out to make sure people see that, at least it's the target area. And we would like to be in a stage called minimal transmission. So these are the numbers. Good question.
The thing I see too is the two differences between Bensonville and Wooddale. Even though Bensonville has a higher number, Wooddale's rate of positive rolling average is higher.
Right.
Is that correct?
That's correct. Then we move on to next slide. Okay, I would like to just introduce Mr. Escobedo, Mrs. Tell, up to the stage. They will present the FEA Equity Resolution video. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for including us on the board agenda. It's nice to see everybody. We're excited to share with you our equity resolution, the video teachers in our union have put together. Equity is something that we feel strongly about. It's something that informs our practice. It's something that we work on as a staff. And it's something that I think our teaching staff and our union has a strong commitment to. So I'm incredibly proud of the video you're about to see. And Ms. Pell is our vice president. She'll tell you a bit about our equity committee and the resolution.
Unlock my phone, sorry. Hi, everybody. Thank you for having us. So I'm the chair of the newly formed FEA Equity Committee. We are a member organization of about 20 of our FEA members. And I want to thank all of them: Abra Millman, Ben Nelson, Candice DeMauro, Dio Velez, Jen Selecki, Jessica Muscarello, Jill Wisniewski, John Aguilar, Kelly Torres, Mark Dreilishars, Matt Lynch, Melissa Rausch, Mike Baker, Mike Mitchell, Nicole Hendricks, Pat Escobedo, Rachel Georgakis, Ranjana Rajendran, Sarah D. Williams, and myself. So our first step as a committee was to create an equity resolution that we all believe in. We adopted it as an FEA at our last meeting, and we'd love to share it with you through this video. After this, we have several action steps that we'd love to share with you as well, if we could be invited back to have a dialogue with you. Thank you so much.
The Fenton Education Association has long believed in working together to put students first.
Fenton Education Association ने लंबे समय से छात्रों को पहले रखने के लिए मिलकर काम कराने में विश्वास किया है.
And we accept the challenge to use these words through the lens of equity.
Y aceptamos el desafío de usar estas palabras a través de la lente de equidad.
And acknowledge that this work is uncomfortable and ever evolving.
Nous reconnaissons que ce travail est inconfortable et en constante évolution.
We put students first when we value students for their race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender identity, ability, religion, spirituality, nationality, and socioeconomic status, and celebrate every unique identity.
We put students first when we understand and acknowledge that educational institutions have long been tools of oppression in which we need to continuously examine the policies and practices that many of us have taken for granted for far too long.
We recognize that we can no longer separate our past from our present in order for an equal future.
We stand with and stand up for historically oppressed communities, whether it be due to their race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender identity, ability, religion, spirituality, nationality, immigration status, or socioeconomic status.
We demonstrate with words, actions, and policies that equity is not just a checkbox, but an issue of deeper morality, and one which, though the work may be uncomfortable, is necessary and is a responsibility to address.
We demonstrate and acknowledge that the institution of education can be an agent for social change and mobility to provide opportunities, empower students to be their own leaders, and to organize with others.
We prioritize the need for students to celebrate their authentic selves, not assimilated versions of what the dominant culture dictates.
We amplify student voices so that their stories hold space for the truths of discrimination, racism, and microaggressions without victim shaming or dismissal of lived experiences and generational trauma.
We embrace all opportunities to educate and confront racism, specifically when students share their experiences.
We acknowledge and reflect on what we choose to include in our curriculum versus what we leave out.
We put students first when we pledge to critically reevaluate curriculum through the perspective of cultural representation.
We speak the languages of students and their families, both literally and metaphorically.
We confess we all have implicit biases and pledge to continuously challenge them.
We will put students first when we strive to mentor our students of color and promote them in leadership positions. We will see to it that their voices will be central to our curriculum as to educating ourselves and our students about the history of oppression and how it continues to benefit those in power.
We will put students first when we continuously reflect upon and challenge our equity practices. We will have uncomfortable and necessary conversations to confront our own privilege, and we accept the challenge to be uncomfortable.
We will put students first when we support our students' social activism.
We will hold ourselves and our school accountable to change, as well as taking ownership of ways in which we have perpetuated racism in our school.
We will put students first when we call out, confront, and rectify racism, when we hear it and see it. We will learn about and confront this destructive power of microaggressions, and we will advocate a fair and just school community by pursuing restorative justice in our classrooms.
We will put students first when we use these principles when making decisions on curriculum, practices, and other policies that impact our students' academic, social, and emotional well-being.
We will put students first when we pronounce their names correctly, use their selected pronouns, and affirm that the language we use to identify ourselves is a fundamental part of our identity.
We will put students first when we protect them from racial profiling in our school and meet them with compassion and justice when they experience it.
We commit to doing the work of dismantling systems of racism and oppression in our school.
We will put students first by defending and empowering them, regardless of immigration status.
In closing, we echo the words of James Baldwin from his A Talk to Teachers in 1963. The obligation of anyone who thinks of himself as responsible is to examine society and to try to change it and to fight it, at no matter what risk.
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 At no matter what risk. This is the only hope society has.
This is the only way society changes.
Again, thank you for inviting us. We were really proud and happy to share our resolution, but we're also really excited about partnering with the board and beginning that dialogue, beginning those conversations, beginning that long journey towards equity, inclusion, and diversity. I'd be happy to take any questions or comments that you all have.
Mr. Escobedo, that was really well done. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Mrs. Tells, really well done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Escobedo. Thank you, Mrs. Toll. Very well done.
Next slide, Jim. Last week, the Board of Education attended a workshop, their PD, their board retreat entitled Equity and Educational Imperative. Two field directors from the Illinois Association of School Boards, Sandra and Dee, attended the retreat and facilitated it. One of their recommendations was to provide an equity report at the board meeting, and that's what we're going to do this evening. And we will provide an update on a couple things: the Fenton equity audit, equity PD or professional development for our staff, student parent community initiatives, and financial muscles regarding our equity initiative. Fenton has long believed and practiced equity. Are we done with our journey? Absolutely not. As the FEA video says, we are just getting started. It's not over. I believe we are entering a new phase of our equity journey. And this new phase centers on a district equity audit. We have partnered with the DuPage Regional Office of Education to facilitate and assist us with the audit, planning, and implementation. Specifically, we, and when I say we, I mean the district equity leadership teams, are working with Dr. Yvette Dubiel, DuPage Regional Office of Education Executive Director of Equity and Professional Learning. I first met Dr. Dubiel a couple years ago at the Equity and Excellence Workshop. She was promoting one of her programs at the Regional Office of Education regarding the district equity audit. I immediately requested Fenton to be part of this. Fenton is the first school in DuPage to undergo the ROE's equity audit for a school district. Our journey with this audit started in the year 2019-2020, as you know. One of the first tasks was to identify and assemble a district equity leadership team composed of teachers, support staff, and administrators. That was completed. Second, to conduct and discuss a needs assessment. That was also completed. And third, to ascertain data. That was also completed. And fourth, conduct focus groups with a variety of stakeholders, including students, parents, and staff. That was also completed. The district equity leadership team has received the results of this audit, which was completed this year, actually a couple weeks ago. At our next board meeting, Dr. Dubiel and members of the DELC team, the district equity leadership team, will present the following: the purpose and process of the equity audit, the goals of an equity audit, and to report the results and findings of the audit. And finally, the next step: where do we go from there? So stay tuned as we present this at the next board meeting. I would like to invite Michelle right now to discuss and report out some of the professional development that we have facilitated this last couple of years in regards to equity.
Thanks for letting me out of the freezer back there. Like so cold. So if you heard me sneezing back there, I'm sorry. I just want to thank Patrick and Melissa and the FEA for putting that together. It was so well done. And I think it just exemplifies the spirit of Fenton, especially within this building, that we experience every day. So thank you for doing that. I was able to spend time at your equity retreat last week, and I was grateful for your efforts, and I was grateful for the opportunity to be there, for the time that I was able to be there. After listening to our audience and listening to all of you and listening to some of our facilitation, I realized that we haven't been sharing enough with you and with our other stakeholders about the very important work that our staff does on a daily basis, and we haven't made an explicit alignment of some of our professional development to the topic of equity. I've shared with you for years now the programs and the professional development. It's time to be more explicit. So I'd like to take some time tonight to share and start beginning outlining and outline some of these efforts in a more clear and specific way, especially the professional development of our certified staff. So I want to preface some of this and tell you that tonight's message is about the efforts of our certified staff. I know that it needs to reach well beyond that. I know that we need to work with all stakeholders in our school and our community. And in that, we must grow. This work is good, but it only starts to scratch the surface. We have deep and uncomfortable work ahead of us. We are not experts. We don't claim to be experts, but we will strive to keep learning and getting better. The presentation won't capture all of the professional learning we've done in the years. There's many facets of our work that need to be addressed at given times, like right now, technology and how to use various tools. But what we've found is the more we've done with equity, the better we're getting at ensuring that we do draw a clear and concise alignment back to equity-related goals. Finally, our PD opportunities are possible because of the true commitment of our staff to grow and to actually take part in designing and implementing many of the opportunities. We have so many teachers who step up outside of their regular teaching duties to organize these opportunities to help their peers continue to grow, and I am so grateful for all of the work of so many. So I'm going to provide a brief overview of some of the grounding principles in our approach to professional learning. Many people call it professional development, and I do at times, and I might use it once in a while, but I most commonly refer to it as learning because that's what we're here for. So our professional learning is personalized, layered, and it ensures student voice, or at least that's what we hope. So but by personalized, we try to meet our adults just as we do with our students. We try to meet them where they're at in their learning. So we don't always do the same learning in the same way at the same time. And we also try not to fire hose training that provides an intense amount of information and expectation in one sitting and expect it to stick. We layer and build on concepts, and we try to provide many opportunities that allow for reflection and continuous improvement. Some of our teachers have participated in intense inquiry-based programs that last anywhere from a year to 18 months. In other cases, we provided whole group training with follow-up optional workshops. And in other cases, we have specialized opportunities like in-house book studies or outside conferences. Our learning must be grounded in student voice. This is an extremely important principle that we've begun, but admittedly need to continue growing. Our students' voice is absolutely necessary as we analyze our practices. We have allowed students to be interviewed and sit on panels during our professional learning, and it was one of the most powerful professional learning opportunities we've had. We have to do more of it. So what I've done beyond those guiding principles is I've categorized some of the areas and some of the facets of equity that we've addressed so far. There's a lot more to it, but this is what we've been able to dive into. This doesn't cover everything, but like I said, these are the ones that we're aiming towards and continue to aim towards. So equity and access is one of those facets. It's imperative that to us that our students have access to rigorous courses and learning opportunities. We want to ensure that our students have the resources they need. And finally, we want to ensure students leave Fenton keenly aware of high wage careers and what it takes to secure those opportunities. We want students to be college ready because even if they access military or trade careers, the more aptitude they develop while they're here, the better jobs they'll access in any sector. Identity and voice. We want our students and staff to secure confidence in their identity, and we want to raise the voices of our students, especially those from marginalized populations. We have been working on this through the art of storytelling in a lot of different ways. I'm going to talk about our partnership with Second Story in a moment, and allowing avenues for these stories to be shared. This builds the important value of empathy throughout our culture. Within teaching and learning, we're really working to ensure our teaching and learning systems are personalized for our students, and that relationships and partnerships between students and teachers are at the center of our learning model. Ensuring opportunities for students to demonstrate mastery of rigorous competencies through their own passions and interests is an ultimate goal. Within our assessment systems, we want to ensure that a grade is focused on mastery of competencies rather than point collecting and compliant behavior. We also want to be careful that our assessment and grading practices avoid punitive motivation methods with students, especially those with high levels of trauma. Finally, we ensure our measurement of learning within the curriculum is clear so we can have stronger systems of support. The fourth area is anti-racism. We have begun working on our implicit bias as a whole staff. We never want to subconsciously vary our expectations for students based on the color of their skin, socioeconomic status, gender identity, sexual orientation, religion, ethnicity, and all other identity factors that I've not intentionally in any way left out. It is important that we continue our work in this area, as sometimes our biases are even invisible to us and to ourselves. We are also working towards ensuring that our curriculum materials and practices are culturally relevant and empowering to the students we work with. We want them to see themselves in the content they are learning and be engaged in the approaches that better match their cultural identity. Finally, social emotional learning. This is not a new one at Fenton. This has been a strong focus of our organization for quite some time. We've rolled out Ruler as a means of helping students develop social emotional intelligence. We have begun developing our trauma-informed lens and employing restorative practices. There is still plenty of more work to do in these areas, but we've begun. So what we've done is we have some great expertise in our building. As you can see from the staff video and the FEA video, our teachers know what they're talking about in this area. But we are not shy to bring in experts when needed. In this case, surrounding equity, we have found the approach of partnering with organizations fundamentally grounded in the work of equity to be invaluable to our progress. This timeline provides a sense of which organizations or consultants we've partnered with and when these partnerships began. So I'll take you through our journey. So Equal Opportunity Schools was one of our first partnerships with an organization fully committed to equity. Their lens is on equity and access and opportunity, and more recently supporting schools with cultural change related to equity. They want to ensure that all of our students have access to rigorous coursework, and they explicitly help us with analyzing our enrollment data for students of color and low income status and AP courses. They also led equity leadership labs the last 2 years in which some of our staff and administrators participated. That's one of those intense experiences. It was a year-long experience. We talked about anti-racism, we talked about microaggression, we talked about implicit bias. So we had 6 teachers in the first one, or 6 staff in the first lab, 6 staff in the second lab. Since their involvement, the staff and on our EOS committee and who participated in those opportunities have developed a number of professional learning opportunities to bring back to the staff. This semester, they're running a series of equity talks on critical issues of anti-racism. Melissa Toe, who spoke to you earlier, our SEL coordinator at the time, sat down with me and James and advocated for us to start a partnership with CASTLE. That's our second partnership. This was a pivotal step in our journey towards equity. Ruth Cross, our consultant, is an amazing, wise lady who helped us develop our school-wide SEL action plan and pointed us to some of our greatest resources. She brought to us the recommendation to read the book Culturally Responsive Teaching by Zaretta Hammond. We studied this book as a whole school in 2019, and if I remember correctly, so did the board. CASTLE, through Ruth and the ROE, also hosts ongoing professional learning communities that bring schools together at different times throughout the year, especially throughout DuPage, and they learn from one another. They support one another in this work, and some of the SEL committee members attend regularly. Then we met Tony Reibel after a visit to Stevenson High School. We learned how they were transforming their grading and assessment system to be one that focuses on building partnerships between the teacher and the student, and one that develops more independent learners. We contracted with their director of assessment, Tony Reibel, and he's helped us not only rethink our grading practices, but our overall curricular design. This design ensures that we focus on robust and rigorous skills or competencies, rather than simple knowledge acquisition and determining a grade. It also moves us away from a traditional point collection system of grading, which most commonly focuses on compliant behavior and where students have varying abilities to game the system, and toward a system where every student is able to demonstrate their mastery of rigorous and robust competencies. We more recently brought in Rose Colby, who literally wrote the book on competency-based education, and she's helping us critically review our curriculum and assessment design to provide us guidance in our next phases of work. Then came LEAP Innovations. We had a leadership retreat when James first became the superintendent, and he brought in Al Bertani. Al sat on Arnie Duncan's cabinet when he was here in Chicago. In a brief conversation with him about teaching and learning, as it relates to equity, he introduced me to a new organization called LEAP Innovations. They're a research organization with a focus on personalized learning, and they believe that teaching and learning through this methodology will truly impact the achievement gap. We've had 2 cohorts of teachers go through their intensive 18-month program to transform their practices in their classroom. We have seen some truly innovative and reflective teaching arise from the partnership. Later, we found an organization called Deeper Learning, and we formed our partnership with High Tech High. They authored the movie Most Likely to Succeed and have a network of public charter schools throughout California. They believe that through project-based learning, a form of personalized learning, that we can close the achievement gap and truly engage our students in their learning. We see this as a more rigorous way to engage our students and a way of taking down that wall that we talked about as a barrier. We open up inquiry. We allow them to explore their passions that are meaningful to them. We see this as we also see this as a way to be more directly involved with their communities. We have had them out to Fenton multiple times. They even hosted a design camp here last summer where educators from as far as China came to learn with us. So the SEL committee, again, under the direction of Melissa, advocated to take SEL more school-wide and bring in Ruler out of the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence. Ruler aims to infuse the principles of emotional intelligence into the immune system of pre-K to 12 schools, informing how leaders lead, teachers teach, students learn, and families support students. That's right off their website. If you ever see a mood meter or hear a student talking about a meta moment, this is straight out of our work with Ruler. The SEL committee also wanted to dive into restorative justice and restorative practices. We brought in a local organization called Umoja. They have been working in the Chicago Public Schools as a resource to help transform discipline practices and culture within the CPS system. They provided our staff training and consultation to our Restorative Justice Committee. They've worked closely with our SEL coordinator and our deans on ways to infuse healing practices into our system. We still have a lot of work in this area, but we started. The ROE since developed a relationship with the IIRP, the International Institute of Restorative Practices, and we will likely continue our journey on that topic with them. Through Deeper Learning, we also met our friends from Freedom Preparatory Academy. I don't know what number it is up there, but number 8. A network of public charter schools in Memphis, Tennessee. Mike Brown and Sanjada Salam have been out to Fenton twice now. We were going to aim for this last summer, but we all know what happened. They worked with the entire staff on the topic of implicit bias. They came back for a summer session where other Chicagoland schools joined us to dive into culturally responsive, or what they call empowering practices. This next partnership is truly unique. We came across another local organization here in Chicago called Second Story. We were trying to find some experts to help some of our students develop stories in one of our summer literacy camps. What we found was an organization committed to equity and identity development through the use of storytelling. The power to build empathy in our world through this methodology is what drives them. So they've worked with our teachers and our students and will continue to do so. Some may not know this, but we, for the past couple of years, at nearly every single staff gathering, staff meetings or staff professional development, one or more of our staff tell their stories to their colleagues. This has been one of the most profound sources of building empathy for one another and for our students that we've experienced. Second Story helped us, has helped at least one of our staff members take their story to the actual stage, and hundreds of our students develop their stories that have been publicly shared with staff in storytelling exhibitions over the past 2 years. Highlander Institute is the newest partner for us. We actually called them last winter for help with culturally responsive pedagogy because they offer a year-long deep dive grounded in continuous improvement cycles for teachers. And then the pandemic hit. So we kind of shifted gears. And what they've been helping us with is collecting our stakeholder voices and using this data to design appropriate learning plans during the pandemic. We will also get back to our culturally responsive teaching endeavor in the near future, as they truly are an organization focused on developing equity through teaching and learning. So another more recent, oh, that was a little out of order, I'm sorry. Another more recent one was the Attachment and Trauma Network. Last year, we sent one of our counselors, Nancy Connor, and one of our social workers, Dio Velez, to a national conference hosted by this organization. I wouldn't call them a full-fledged partnership yet, but the work that Nancy and Dio have done in our school since they've been there has been beyond valuable. Since this pandemic started, they have been putting out weekly tips on how to approach their work, our work through a trauma-informed lens, and they have hosted sessions for adults in the building considering this is a highly traumatic experience for everybody. And our students need healthy teachers. Finally, Dr. Yvette Dubio from the ROE has been an incredible resource for us. We just began our work with her, and we're looking forward to continuing this year. She worked with our DELT, as James talked about, and our district equity leadership team, and she's taken our school through a comprehensive equity audit. This year, she will help DELT dive into results and start developing strategies and actions. So this journey has touched every single certified staff member in some way. And they have all been on a personalized journey through this work. Not everybody has had the opportunity for the intensive, year-long intensive work, but those opportunities will continue to come. And the whole school and optional activities will always be present. Our hope is that all of our staff will find truly meaningful ways to engage in this work of equity, and more importantly, as we move forward and provide opportunities for it, more of our various stakeholders will join us. I personally look forward to the action plans our district will develop to continue Fenton's equity journey. Professional learning will just be one aspect of that plan, but I have confidence that we are at least on track and starting to move in the right direction. Thanks for your time and your support. And please feel free to reach out to me with any questions.
Thank you, Michelle.
As Dr. Benson cleans the podium, I would like to invite our principal, Mr. Lazarevich, to discuss students, parents, and community initiatives to equity. Thanks, Michelle.
Back up.
Is it that cold over there?
I can't hear. It's blowing
You okay, Michelle? Yeah, okay. All right, thank you very much, board, Mr. Wiedemann. Thank you, FEA. That was fantastic, by the way. Again, I can't stress enough what Michelle talked about. And to our alumni that came back, thank you very much. Those are important and important feedback for us as we go. I wasn't here for some of you as you graduated, but I was here for Jamie, so that was so that I should get some points for that, right, Jamie? No, but thank you very much. So see, these are some of the things that students, parents, and community, some of our initiatives as we continue to go forward. Most recently, we've been doing Padres Amigos for a couple of years. Our Brave group, we have Stunt that is part of our, that's an activity that any student can be part of. We've done equal opportunity school events. Michelle talked about the Equal Opportunities Lab. We actually held that here at Fenton High School because we thought it was that important to make sure that people saw what we're doing here in terms of our work and saw how important our students are to us. We have started a parent-teacher organization that did not exist here in the past. We've done equity audit with student focus groups, a principals advisory committee, which we started with pizza, Jamie, but we no longer allowed to do pizza at the principals advisory. But it's an opportunity for students to have voice, as we talked about. It was really important for me to hear what's going on. We started a Black Student Union as well, most recently within the last 2 years. Again, open to any student, with a focus on what does it look like for our Black students in our building. What does education look like for them? And they've actually taken ownership of our in terms of February, they actually came to us and they said, we want to talk about African American History Month. Like, we want to be the ones that do that. And so, which was awesome for us to do. So these are some things, some other things that are outside that we want to make sure that we recognize within our community as our Food for Families. I think Mr. Antango's talked about this before. From March alone, we've given out 72,000 meals to our community. Just in terms of equity, we want to make sure that everybody has what they need to get through this pandemic. So these are just some of the things that we've done. But again, I'd like to stress what the FEA talked about. It's about our students every single day, and I think that's very, very important to make sure that we recognize that it is about our students, whether we're partnering with a parent-teacher organization or it's our Polish parent outreach group. It's always about the kids as they come through our building. So thank you.
Thank you, Yvonne.
Thank you.
Like any other initiative of how important equity is to us, you got to put some muscle into it, right? It's just not good to talk about it. And what do we mean by muscle? I'm talking about wallet muscle. I'm talking about district money to put, to put it on the map. And this board and the past board continues to support our equity initiatives, no matter the cost financially. And I'm going to invite our CSBO, Bruce Martin, to talk about that a little bit and how have we put our money where our mouth is in regards to equity and how we have supported this journey 5, 6, 7 years ago.
I got a little nervous when you said no matter the cost, but I'll try to get over that introduction. But all these things we talked about that Michelle Papanicola just reviewed, our principal reviewed, James Antango, our superintendent, have reviewed. We've made an investment in all of these initiatives, and we've earmarked grant dollars towards it. We've earmarked local dollars towards these initiatives, and we've really made a commitment, and that's shared. That vision is shared throughout the district, our administration at the district level and at the building level. But just a couple of other things, our curriculum development, we made a major investment in that this past summer to have a stronger remote learning plan. I think we've got a phenomenal program. I've talked to some other districts, and I think we're leaps and bounds ahead of many. I know a lot of people would certainly rather be in person. We would too, but we have the infrastructure in place, and we have the talent for the teaching in place for that as well. Our technology enhancements, we mentioned a little bit of this earlier. The hotspots, the Internet Essentials program that we're going to participate in or are participating in. Our facility assessment, we invested in that last year. It kind of got a little bit of a hiccup going on here with the COVID thing, but we want to get back on track with that to review and assess the facilities and how they're serving all of our students. And from classroom size to outside facilities to improvements in HVAC controls and things like that to make a better environment for our students. One of the things, Mr. Lezardovich talked about food services, and we have served thousands of meals over the summer. One thing I think that's unique to Fenton, and this is really driven by our superintendent, we not only serve 5 days a week, but we serve on the weekends as well, because we want to make sure our kids are fed, our community students and whatnot have adequate nutrition, and we know that doesn't stop. People continue to eat over the weekend, so we want to make sure that happens, and we're committed to that, and we're continuing to do that now. Many of you probably have heard or are participating in the Bison Cultural Connection, and that provides after-school opportunities. It's a grant program. We're in partnership with District 2, one of our feeder elementaries, or our feeder elementary in Wooddale. But it provides all different types of things. This is just barely scratching the surface of what we do, but homework assistance, SAT help, clubs, activities, cooking classes. I know one of our board members is very aware of that. So it's a lot of wonderful activities and opportunities for our kids that is available to students here. The other thing that really is not on there is transportation. These things seem kind of not that exciting, but we have all kinds of busing opportunities in a normal school year, late activities, early morning activities, regular routing and things like that we're committed to make sure our students are here and able to participate and have the transportation to get there. So we're happy to do that and have committed to do that. So I only scratched the surface on some of the things, but with all, and these all take a financial commitment, and we are continuing to do that, have done it, and will continue to do that. So.
Thanks, Bruce.
Thank you, Bruce.
I would like to re-invite Michelle Papanikolaou to talk about the Student Remote Learning 2.0 survey. As promised, we continue to survey our students, our parents, and teachers. We are on our way to, I think it's out there already. You're going to talk about it a little bit, Michelle, in regards to our parent survey. We started out with the students first. So she'll talk about the survey here. And Jovan. Yes, go. Yep.
I feel like I'm at the hotspot.
You are. There's a lot of connectivity there.
Okay, so we conducted our student survey last week. We administered it during Bison time on 9/21, September 21st. After about 5 weeks of instruction, we felt, okay, maybe we can get a good sense of how they're feeling, and maybe we'll be in a rhythm to some degree that we can get some valid feedback here. We surveyed all grade levels. We had approximately 1,200 students respond. We do need to seek out those other 200 plus students and find out what we're missing from our students who aren't in those seats. Go. Thank you, Jim. So we had some general areas of focus throughout the survey. We had questions about their general experience, technology, their expectations, their communication, their learning, social emotional needs, support, and their learning environment. So we'll kind of, I think I picked 1 or 2 questions from each category. There were over 30 questions, so I'm not going to take you through every single one of them, but the ones that really are giving us some sincere insight are the ones we want to pull. So how well is remote learning working for you? Was the first question, and it looks like 65%. It seems to be working to some degree, from the average to the working very well. But for 35%, it's still not working to some degree.
Okay, by the way, we also took, we actually gave them an opportunity to tell us some specifics of what's going on as well.
Yeah.
So that's some anecdotal data that we're going to dissect and analyze as well to see what the specifics are for that. So it wasn't just a Likert question of how do you feel? It's what was actually going into that as well that we'll digest.
Yeah. What's working, what's not, what could we change? If you could change anything, what would you change? So we really have to go through that data with a fine-tooth comb before we can identify any themes within that. That's Highlander is also helping us develop those themes. So they're going to be going through that data with us and in some cases for us, because that's a lot of respondents. So slide 5, this is, do you have reliable internet access at home and technology devices? So 1% said never. Less than 1% of our students said that they never have reliable internet access, which I think is a tribute to Jim Batson and Bruce Martin. There's a lot of different ways we've deployed resources to our families through hotspots or through free internet access or getting the word out about access. We still want to know what that sometimes is about, but we feel that, you know, that's kind of the nature of it. Even at us at home sometimes don't have the best internet. No, that's okay. You're clapping at that? Okay, so the next one. About how much time per week would you say you are participating in learning outside of your live connections? So just under half of our students claim to have be spending 5 or more hours outside of their live connections. And about 37% are saying they're working anywhere between 0 and 5 hours. The rest are kind of unsure, which that's fine. Slide number 7. How would you rate your ability to manage your workload? This is an important one for us because we are hearing that this is hard with the amount of independent work they have to do beyond their live sessions. A lot of them are saying it's a little bit overwhelming at times. So we have about 66% are average to above average and saying I can find ways to manage it, but still almost a third of our students are finding it difficult to manage this workload.
Very difficult to manage.
Yes.
3, so
Yeah, so we have about a third of our students, I'm sorry, it's 34%. No, it's not the opposite way.
I'm finding it extremely hard.
Yeah. Can you go back, Jim? Yeah, I'm finding it extremely difficult is the 1. So the 1 and the 2 is about 34% of our students. The 3, 4, and 5 is about 66% of our students. So just over a third are still finding it difficult to manage their workload.
And again, there was a narrative piece to that as well. So we're trying to get as much information as we can, and we're working on following up with some of those students that are finding whatever the workload is to have those conversations.
Mm-hmm. Slide 8 was about communication from their teachers. So students are finding that their communication from their teachers is, in many cases across subject areas, just right. So this was probably one of the strongest responses we had, where it's all kind of in one column there. So, you know, some are still saying they're getting less or more, but the majority of cases they're feeling like they're getting just the right amount. Slide 9, sorry, do you feel like you are, I should have worn my glasses.
Receiving an adequate amount of communication from your schools, principals, deans, and other administrators.
All right, so most of them are saying yes, but there's about 15% of our students who want more from us. They probably want to hear more positive news about activities and sports and opportunities, but they want a little bit more from us. All right. I feel that I am receiving an adequate amount of face-to-face instruction from my teachers. So 85% feel that they are receiving an adequate amount, the 3, 2, and the 1. But we do have 15% of our students that we need to follow up with because they're not feeling like they're getting enough, and what can we do to provide that for them? You're going to need to read that one.
Sure. Compared to this time last year, how would you rate how much you are learning in your classes?
So this was interesting to us and an interesting question. By subject, most cases, they're feeling that they're learning about the same. That's the red bar. So that's the highest response for every subject area. There were those that felt not as much and those who said maybe even more. Social studies, electives, world language, they're all feeling that they're learning more kids are saying that they're learning more than learning less, which is interesting.
How do the kids know that, though?
We just asked them what they felt in this.
Are we testing to see if they might think they're learning the same amount, but do they really know? If they're just,
Well,
No,
the
it-
students, so we're taking what they got from last year. I mean, it's the same,
It's just a question that we
Just a question on
asked.
survey in terms of where they are.
So please, parents are going to have their say in their survey. Teachers are going to have their say. This is just what our students are saying at this point. And we're going to have our say for sure. So how would you rate your relationship between you and your classmates this year? This one's really important because 50% of our students, it's about 50-50. Some feel connected in some way, but 50% feel less than connected with their classmates. And that to me is really important. That's something we focused on in our learning this summer and still hasn't translated. It's the nature of remote learning, I suppose, but we just have to keep drilling down into that one and figuring out how to make that better. I feel safe in my remote learning environment. We need to follow up with the nearly 90 students who for some reason didn't feel safe in the 4 or 5 level. So we did collect the individual student emails with these responses so we could follow up. Do you know how to get help if you need it? Yes, or yes, but only in certain areas were the 2 highest, with the no being that red sliver in the middle. I don't have the percentage. Oh, yeah, I do. 6%, no, the next one, 6%. But we just thought this was a pretty strong, yeah, about 5%. So we were feeling pretty hopeful that boot camp may have helped with this, but we need to dig into help figure out what is it that they know how to get help with and not other ways. So we have to dig into that. All right, slide 15, find. If technology coaching was available, would you want it or need it? So we have 6% of our students who want tech coaching, and we're going to find out what they need. The rest are maybes, or they seem to be doing okay. You want to take the next one?
Sure.
Okay.
I feel that I would learn better if I was able to do remote learning while in the school building. So our yeses are about 34%, no's 31%, and then they're unsure of what that would look like is maybe, so that's about 35%.
So would they feel like they could succeed in remote learning if they were actually in the building doing the remote learning?
So giving them a different environment as
Yeah.
opposed to the home environment for
Right.
whatever the purpose is.
Yeah, so about 69% of our students said yes. But in the next one, when I say I feel like I'm able to learn and get work done at home, it looks like 84% of our students say, yes, I can. But still, 69% of them said that they want to come into the building and that they do even better if they were in the building and doing remote learning. So that was an interesting connection between these two, because they seem to think that they're able to get the learning done and the work done.
Do you feel they could do better if they were in the school environment?
Yeah, sure. Right. So that's what they seemed to say in the last one. 69% of them said, at least if we were in the building. But this one, they said, 84% of them said, we were able to get it done.
Yeah, and I would say like between the 4 and the 5, 1 out of 4 students feel that
They're not.
they're not.
Yeah. Yeah, we have to follow up with those 4s and 5s. And we're putting things into place already, and I think Eileen's going to talk about it in a little while, some of the support systems where we are allowing some of our students in the building. So this kind of helps us navigate those systems of support. That's why I say we're going to look into it further. We're actually going to do something with that data. We're not just looking into it. We have some systems. Not everything, believe me, but enough to actually get started. Last one, I have a suitable place to learn at home. Again, we have 141 students that reported a 4 or 5, and we need to figure out how to support them. And finally, we said if you did have a choice, which learning environment would you prefer at this time? So once you take out the unsure, it's not perfect math, but it's about a third, and a third. Third would want to stay remote in some way. A third would want to be hybrid, and a third would want to be in person. About a third would want to be full in person. And that's it. So Highlander will be collating and disaggregating this data for us, comparing our surveys and focus groups from students, parents, teachers, and they're going to help facilitate our next layer of design work, where we'll take this information and make appropriate adjustments or additions or deletions to our current remote learning plan. And we will find our students who didn't take the survey, and we will find those who provided concerning responses and follow up with them.
Thanks, Michelle. Thanks, Jovan.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Next board meeting, we'll present the parents aspect as well. This next one is related to what Michelle was talking about in regards to what are we doing to pivot? What are we doing to try to get more kids involved, connected? And I had our assistant principal make this video. She's unable to attend today, so Sam, you don't have to wipe that down. Right? I'm just kidding. So it's a video message in regards to what are we doing to pivot in remote learning as we get more surveys and feedback from our communities and students. So this one is titled Student Support and Intervention, Building Access While in Remote.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Eileen Roberts, the assistant principal. Our teachers are doing an amazing job of working with students while in the remote setting. We're providing additional support to students who need assistance in their learning. The 5 ways that students can access the building are connectivity through ESL, special education, freshmen on track, and engagement. Connectivity. This is where students that have internet connectivity issues are invited to FHS to utilize our internet. In addition, Fenton is working with the DuPage County to help families acquire in-home internet, thanks to a state grant. ESL. English as a second language that needs support are working with our division leader, Kate Ward, ESL coordinator, Michelle Rodriguez, and our wonderful teaching assistants. The focus is on reading and technology literacy. Special education students are another group we are supporting in the building. The Director of Special Education, Nancy Coleman, and myself are coordinating tutoring and executive functioning sessions and explaining to students and families how to set up office hours with teachers. Freshmen on track. We are monitoring our newest students, the freshmen, and we will provide them extra support as the need arises. Engagement. We are in communication with students who are not consistently engaged with their teachers. We are providing these students with night school tutoring services in the evening hours with funds from our Frida Kahlo grant. In summary, the goal of these in-building interventions is to provide an extra layer of academic, technology, and SEL support in a safe and supervised environment. Thank you for your support.
Eileen Roberts there, folks. Just real quick, as we get data, as we get feedback from our community, as we look at our grading system, our grades and attendance, we try to build in that intervention and support. One of the things that we are starting to do is in regards to SEL, connectivity, just having fun, is to open up our sports activities a little bit more. So here's a quick summary. Go ahead, Jovan.
I also want to add, our deans are making home visits.
Yes, please talk about that.
So they're going anywhere from 5 to 7 students every day, those that are not engaging, those that have maybe missed over a long period of time. So they're being deployed, if you will, every single day to be in contact with students. I know other administrators in the building have done it as well. I've gone to students' homes to see what's going on. So we are definitely trying to use every resource possible and have those conversations to see where we're at. So, and as a matter of fact, we brought in students today over that engagement situation. We've already started to deploy that method as well. So, students that weren't engaging, we called parents and set up meetings with them, and then had them come in, had students come in today to, it's just really more kind of support remote learning, and there's no instruction with it, but right now they're not doing anything at home, so we're hoping that by coming in the building, that we'll be able to get some type of movement with those students that are behind in that manner. So our deans are doing a great job with that as well. In terms of, I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, absolutely. The deans are like our boots on the ground, our intervention on wheels, and we have some good positive feedback from our parents. Oh, thank you for coming. Thank you for talking to my students in regards to, hey, let's get back on track. Let's get back to the studies. Just real quick, another aspect is athletics. As we know, it's very important to our students. So what we have done so far is the following teams are competing and practicing. That's golf, cross country, and tennis. The following teams are conditioning. Okay, what they call it in the athletic world, contact days, but it's not touching folks. Okay, these are basically conditioning. Sideline cheer, sideline dance, softball, and baseball. Our goal here is to get all of our sports team involved in some form or another. Okay, as the guidance from IDPH and the governor's office come in, but these are our plans right now, and it's going on right now as well. And the following teams can start conditioning the week of October 5th, and one of them is not a team: football, basketball, soccer, and marching band. Okay, that's critical. We've read some research in regards to how can we, especially with the aerosol spray of lack of a better word, spit that might fly out of the instrument, how could we protect our students in regards to that? So we're looking into that as well. And lastly, color guard. Yes.
Is there a certain amount of time that they can only be together? Is it like an hour? I mean, is there a time limit?
That's a great question. It's really up to the coach.
Oh, okay.
Is it Julia? Yeah, there you go.
20 days, those by high.
Oh, you're talking about, 20 days then. I was
thinking hourly, but. It's
Oh,
20
sorry,
days
Yeah, most of them is going to be an hour and a half. Okay, as we share the fields with different sports teams. Yes. Next one. So once again, I asked our assistant principal, Eileen Roberts, to present our class of 2020 senior profile. We do a survey every May to see what are our seniors going to do after they graduate from Fenton.
Good evening. This is Eileen Roberts. Today I want to talk about our 2020 senior profile. Our counseling team created a survey to find out what our seniors are doing for their post-secondary plans. The survey goes out to students during the month of April and is finalized on May 1st, also known as Decision Day. This is the day when students declare where they are headed after high school. This year, due to the pandemic, we did not have a chance to celebrate together, but we were able to have 212 out of 346 that completed the survey. Of those surveyed, 90% plan to head off to college to build out their career path. 53% will attend a four-year university, with the top two being Elmhurst University and University of Illinois at Chicago. Both of these schools are frequented by our students for proximity to home and amazing programming. 37% of our students will attend COD, College of DuPage, where they can explore preparatory programs, trade opportunities, or to obtain their associate degree. 72% of our students are first-generation college students. With that large of a percentage of students, our counseling team spends a great deal of time working with the students and family to prepare for what this may look like for each of them. Here's a 3-year comparison of data. As mentioned earlier, due to the pandemic, we reached 212 students. The percentage of 4-year increased from the last 2 years, while the percentage of 2-year decreased from the last 2 years. This seems to be within that range. Our first-generation students are also in line with previous year's data, hovering around 70%. The last row, scholarships, is slightly lower. However, it is close to proportional with the number of students that's surveyed. Students have the opportunity to work with their counselor to complete scholarships that will enhance their post-secondary experience. It is pretty amazing to think that 4 out of 10 students receive a scholarship to college. That is attributed to our students' hard work, willingness to complete applications, as well as support from their counselors and parents. In summary, we were able to survey over 200 students to find out where they were headed for their post-secondary plans. Thank you for your time and commitment to our students.
Thank you, Ms. Roberts. Any questions there? Anything that we've covered from the board? Okay. So those were our seniors 2020. How about the class of 2024? How's that looking? Okay, here's our, as you know, October is our fall enrollment report that we sent to ISB, Illinois State Board of Education. So right now, we have 1,441 students, 1,441. Last year was 1,473. Special education who have IEPs, 111. English as a second language, 203. Low income, and students qualify for low income if they qualify for free and reduced lunch. That's ongoing. So as more application comes in, they're still starting to roll in so they can get the free lunch. Right now we're at 463. Here's a nice graph in regards to our demographics of our students. There are Latino students at 930, our white students at 395, and so forth. So this is how it's looking. So if your question is, hey, look, how are we trending? Are we increasing enrollment or decreasing enrollment? When I first came to Fenton about 6 years ago, we were about 1,500, 1,495. So we're losing a little bit of students at a time. But when we talk to our feeder schools, specifically Bensonville, is it the 6th or 7th grade class?
It's the 7th grade there this year.
Okay, it's going to be a big class. So it depends. Pretty soon we will have to do a demographic study of the 2 districts, actually the 3 districts, and we'll probably partner up as part of our tri-district efforts together to see how our numbers demographically are growing, and how many kids are we going to plan out in the future. This is in Power School, and that's the latest numbers so far. So it'll fluctuate +5, +10, -10, and so forth throughout the year. In regards to FOIA, we received a FOIA from Mr. O'Connell in regards to first bullet point, attendance of certified staff and students from 2015 and the upcoming school year, 2021. Also, second part of the FOIA is days and hours. The administrative center, we thought that would be the district office was open to the public from 2015 to 2021 until July 1st through August 28th. Mr. O'Connell sent this through all of the DuPage County schools, so it's just not Fenton. That has been completed. That is the end of our Fenton reports.
Thank you all. Thank you, James. All right, now we move into closed session. So may I have a motion and a second to go into closed session for the purpose of the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee of the public body or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity. However, we're not done yet.
Two parts.
I was just taking a breather. However, a meeting to consider an increase in compensation to a specific employee of a public body that is subject to the local government wage increase Transparency Act may not be closed and shall be open to the public and posted and held in accordance with this Act 5 ILCS 120/2C1 and collective negotiating matters between the public body and its employees or their representatives, or deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees, 5 ILCS 120/2C2. Thank you, Patty. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Jackie. Roll call, please.
Peyton Ho,
Yes.
Jalwick,
Yes.
Figueroa,
Yes.
Rego,
Yes.
Ramirez,
Yes.
Ting Pong,
Yes.
Wiedemann,
Yes. Okay,
9:15.
Thank you.
thank you.
And the audience is left. We're gonna hold the closed session here in this break. Did we want to take a little break?
Trying to move it along.
Really, Paul? It's only 10:40. We could
Yeah.
stay another hour.
Mhm.
Jackie, that was very sarcastic, just in case you didn't.
Okay,
know
we're
that.
good. Okay. Do we have any questions and or comments regarding the consent agenda?
No. I do.
May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Second, please. Second is Patty. Roll call, please, Mary.
Peyton Ho,
Yes.
Rego,
Yes.
Ramirez,
Yes.
Tinkle Pong, Galloway,
Yes.
Figueroa,
Yes.
Wiedemann,
Yes. Motion has passed. We move on to the committee reports. Juliet and Kit, anything on Bensonville Community Foundation?
We had a meeting. We've had a meeting.
Yay!
And, I'm secretary now, somehow that happened.
Ooh. Congratulations.
Oh, thanks.
She's real excited.
But not really much,
Okay.
right?
At the Finance Committee, Mary Ann,
We have a meeting next month.
Yes.
Right now, we got nothing.
Exactly.
Okay.
Okay.
Carry on.
ISB delegate, the only thing I have is that, as we know, on Wednesday, September 22nd, the Illinois Association of School Boards held a board retreat, delayed from April 2020 due to COVID, titled Equity and Educational Imperative at Fenton High School for the board by Field Services Directors Dee Molinaire and Sandra Quazza. Exercises that challenged and further clarified equity included that by understanding everyone's ethnicity and background, we can understand everyone's own equity journey with mutual trust and respect, as well as understanding one's own biases. The difference between equity, which is fairness, and equality, which is sameness, was clarified. The board also participated in a cultural responsiveness continuum which assisted where the board is and what needs to be done in terms of equity in the district. The retreat was informative and enlightening and uplifting. The retreat reconfirms that every board member here has supported initiatives of equity, inclusiveness, and diversity for the students from groups traditionally marginalized, and that these students are afforded every educational opportunity with a sense of belonging, with the recognition that equity is always an ongoing effort. That's all I have. Lend?
No report.
Okay, NetSec, Leo and Patty?
No, it was just James.
Yep, the budget was approved. They're doing a bidding process for their facilities to replace their basement, ventilation, and parking lot.
And they had the minutes said that they're well under budget.
Yes.
Yeah, because of decreased costs.
Okay, thank you. Policy Committee,
We did that.
we did that today. I think we're here. Next board meeting is on Wednesday, October 21st at 7 PM. But before that, we have a finance facilities meeting on the same evening prior to the board meeting at 6 PM. And does anyone have any new business?
No, but let me ask a question about this board meeting now coming up, since Paul
Virtual.
and since one member is supposed to be here and probably both of us will be here, can they go Zoom?
Your policy meeting can also be remote.
Okay.
The finance.
I mean,
yeah.
finance, yeah.
Finance, yes, that
So-
could be remote.
Oh,
So we'll
we
be
can do
remote.
everything remote.
That's correct. It's not Bruce's fault anymore again. Sorry, Bruce.
Okay.
Okay.
May I have a motion? Oh, I'm sorry,
Sorry, go ahead.
Mary Ann, go on.
No, you're good. I'm
Oh.
good.
Sorry,
Okay.
Bruce.
May I have a motion and a second to adjourn?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Mary Ann. May I have a second? Oh, Jackie, thank you, Jackie. Roll call, please. Mary?
Peyton Ho,
Yes.
Ramirez,
Yes.
Tinkle Pong, Galloway,
Yes.
Figueroa,
Yes.
Rego, Wiedemann,
Yes. Motion is
10:46.
passed. Good night to all.